Alright, so in this video, we're just going to go through the word problems, and I'm going to show you how you would enter them into ALEKS. And I've also included my iPad here so you can see what I would be doing on paper before I'm ready to start answering the question. So go ahead, pause the video, read through the problem, and set it up. All right, now as we are reading it, it is telling us that X is time for cardio, and then our Y represents the time that they spend weight training. So I'm just making a note of that to myself, so when I set up my equations, I know that they're going to be correct. Okay. So now I'm just going back through and reading the question and filling out my inequalities as I go through the word problem. All right, so in the second sentence, it says each week he exercises for at least 5 hours. So that just means that we are taking X plus Y, and at least is going to be greater than or equal to, and then our 5 hours. He spends at most 12 hours doing cardio. So that means that my X has to be less than or equal to 12. And then he spends at most 3 hours weight training. So that will be Y less than or equal to 3. And then again, I need to remember to include that X is greater than or equal to 0 and Y is greater than or equal to 0. And that's because we can't train for a negative number of hours. So this is the system that we need to focus on graphing. So that means that I'm going to need to solve this equation for Y. So I'm subtracting the X over. Okay. And then as I graph, this is going to be a vertical line, and then my next one will be a horizontal line. And then these just represent the X and Y axis. Okay. So now in ALEKS, I am ready to start graphing. So I'm just going to start with that top equation. So I'm going to grab my line right away. You can also grab the pencil, so it doesn't matter which one. So starting at positive 5, and then we're going down 1 over 1. Next one, we are going to have a vertical line through 12 on the X. So I'm just making a vertical line. And then we need a horizontal line at 3. And then I'm also going to put a line on the y-axis and then one on the x-axis. And that's just to prevent my shading from going into the negatives. So it's better to have the lines there and not need them than to forget them. So looking at this, I need to be above the horizontal line. And then so if you need to, this is going to be above. And then for the vertical line, we need to be on the left side, and then we need to be below the horizontal line. So that shading is going to be right in here. Okay. All right, let's do another one. All right, so go ahead, pause the video, and then read through the question and see if you can set up the inequalities. All right, so for our next problem, again, I'm going to start with a variable. So X is going to represent our flowers, and then Y represents the veggies. So a gardener will use up to 230 square feet planting flowers and vegetables. So again, I'm just taking my X plus my Y, and that has to be less than or equal to the 230. So once we run out of space, we can't plant any more flowers or vegetables. And then as we read, so she wants the area used for vegetables. Okay, so looking at this, used for vegetable to be at least 4 times the area used for flowers. Oops. So I want to write my inequality exactly how this is reading. So veggies is Y, and then at least is greater than or equal to 4 times, and then X is flowers. Okay. And then again, I need to remember to include x greater than or equal to 0 and y greater than or equal to 0 because we can't have a negative number of flowers or vegetables. Okay. And now we are ready to start graphing. So again, we'll have to solve that top equation for y. So I'm subtracting the x over. So we're graphing y less than or equal to negative x plus 230. And then we're going to need to be below that line. And then this one, my y-intercept is just 0, so if it helps, you can include that. And then we'll have to be above that line. Okay. Now looking at our graph here, as long as the scale is the same on the x and the y-axis, we're just doing our slope like normal. And notice here how it's going to be kind of hard to tell where 230 is. So to graph that part, I'm actually going to click on this box here. And then I can type in the number that I want. So x is 0, and then I want the y to be 230. And then notice how this point showed up right here. So we're technically going down one box and then over another box. So you can kind of guesstimate, or again, I can type in my number. So if I just use 20, that means that I'm just plugging in 20 here. So I'm thinking of this as y equals negative 20 plus 230. So if I add that, the y is going to be 210. So we would graph the point 20 to 10. And that will give me the second one. So let me type that in. So 20 and then 210. And then we're graphing, oops. Let me move this here. All right, sorry. 0 to 30. Plot point. And then 20 to 10. Plot that point. All right, so they have shown up. Let me move this back. And get rid of this. Okay, so now I can connect these points together. And then for my next line, I am starting at 0. And again, as long as our scale is the same, I can just count my slope like normal. So I'm going up 4 boxes and over 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1. And then I need to remember to put lines on both the x-axis and the y-axis. And again, that's just to make sure that my shading stays in the positive area. So we need to be below this line and then above this one. So my shading is going to be right here. All right, let's keep going. All right, so go ahead, pause the video, read through the problem, and then start setting up your inequalities. All right, so this is telling us that x represents the number of hours of the first mine, and then y is going to represent the number of hours the second mine is operated. Okay, so this one's a little bit different for our setup. So there's a couple of things that we need to make sure that we're doing if we get stuck. So we're trying to find our totals again, because that will help us set up our equations. So it says the company must produce at least 350 tons of regular grade and 240 tons of low grade per week. So if that's at least, I'm going to need something to be greater than or equal to each of those numbers. So this is 350 and 240. And just kind of as a reminder, this is regular grade, and then the 240 was low grade. So all the numbers dealing with regular grade are going to have to go together, and then all the numbers dealing with low grade will have to go together. So our first mine produces 5 tons of regular grade, so 5x for that first mine. and then 8 tons of low grade. So that will have to go down into the second one, so 8x. And then the second mine produces 7 tons of regular, so the 7 goes in the first one, and then 3 tons of low grade. So that will go into the second one. And then it says the first mine can be operated no more than 60 hours per week. So X has to be less than or equal to 60. And then the second mine, no more than 50 hours per week. So Y would have to be less than or equal to 50. And then always including the X greater than or equal to 0 and Y greater than or equal to 0. So this is the system that I'm going to need to focus on solving. So we are going to have to solve for the Y's. So looking at this one, I'm going to subtract the 5x and then divide everything by 7. So this will be Y greater than or equal to negative 5 over 7x plus, and then 350 divided by 7 is 50. Okay. And then on that next equation, we're subtracting 8x and then dividing everything by 3. So Y will be greater than or equal to negative 8/3 x, and then 240 divided by 3 is 80. And we need to be above both of those lines when we get ready to shade. Okay. All right, so looking at this, starting at 50, so that will be here. And let's see, we are going down 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then for my next one, starting at 80, down 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then over 3. So again, as long as your scale is the same, you can just do your slope like normal. So this is going to be a vertical line, and then this will give me a horizontal line. So we need a vertical line at 60 on the X, and then a horizontal line at 50 on the Y. And then I am adding a line at the X axis and the Y axis. Okay, so we have a lot going on in this graph. So we have to be below my horizontal line, to the left of the vertical line, and then we are going to need to be above each of our diagonal lines. So that means that my shading is going to end up in this little spot right here.